Your brain is not a supercomputer. It's a cluttered attic filled with outdated software. Most people try to solve complex problems using gut feelings or brute mental force, which is why they keep making the same expensive mistakes. Smart people don't just think more, they think differently using mental models. These are cognitive shortcuts, like apps for your brain, that filter out the noise and reveal the best path forward. Today, I'm giving you the 10 essential models to upgrade your operating system. The cognitive attic: why you need better tools, not more information. Facts alone do not equal clarity. Data without a plan becomes noise you bump into all day. The cognitive attic is the place you store practical tools, not more numbers. It sits above your daily routines and holds brain apps you can pull out when decisions get sticky. Think of it as a shelf for the mental toolbox, where each tool is simple to use and ready to apply. The point is not to chase smarter data, but to replace random thinking with repeatable moves. Better tools beat more data every time. When you face a decision, you need a small set of reusable tools that your brain can reach quickly. Brain apps riding in the attic. A simple checklist works magic. Define the decision, list goals, identify constraints, note who benefits, and spot potential failures. If a tool filters out bad options, you stop wasting time arguing with random data. The attic holds such checklists, scripts, and a few mental models you can apply again and again. Inversion is a core tool. Instead of asking, "Is this choice good?" ask, "What would make this choice bad?" First principles thinking means stripping a problem to basic elements and testing whether the premise holds. Second-order thinking asks what happens after the next action, not just right away. Probabilistic thinking adds rough odds to choices. Use simple language and clear outcomes so the brain can run the model without a dozen caveats. Filters for reality keep you from being fooled by noise. Examples show up in daily life. Check source credibility, read beyond catchy headlines, consider base rates, and beware of confirmation bias. When you read a claim, a quick scaffold helps. Who benefits? What data would prove it false? And what is the denominator? The goal is to reduce stupid mistakes, not to achieve perfect insight. Your attic won't guarantee brilliance, but it will stop you from leaping into obvious traps. Keep adding tools, but only what you actually use. The map is not the territory. Why your perception is always flawed. Your senses do not hand you reality as it is. The map you carry in your head is a simplified sketch, not the land itself. The brain turns streams of light, sounds, and touch into a usable model. That model is a tool, not a truth. The map is helpful, yet it lies about scale and edges. In daily life, this shows up as misreading people, misjudging risk, and chasing clean answers instead of messy possibilities. Think of it as filters for reality that trade nuance for speed. The brain apps in your head run quick checks, but they skip large parts of the ground you stand on. A close look reveals that perception becomes wrong the moment you assume the map is the territory. Perception is bounded by attention. Only a slice of the world reaches your brain at any moment. If you focus on one detail, you miss others. Memory reshapes events after they happen. Past wins shape current bets. Biases are not crimes, they are built-in shortcuts. Confirmation bias makes you notice confirming signals and ignore the rest. Availability makes dramatic events feel common. A single story can loom large. These flaws are universal, not personal flaws. The map overestimates control when the territory fights back. Here are practical tools you can use. Start with the mental toolbox. Treat every belief as a tentative map. Use 2 maps for one decision. One map is your first instinct. The other is a contrarian check. Force yourself to seek disconfirming evidence. Run a tiny experiment or simulate a scenario to test your map. Before acting, pause and label your confidence. If you are 80% sure, push yourself to the 60% level and move cautiously. Create a simple checklist. What could be wrong with this view? What would change my mind? Who would disagree and why? Switch perspectives. Argue from the other side and from the edge of the domain. Keep a log of the corrections your maps undergo over time. It helps you calibrate. Remember, the map is not the territory, but it is a useful tool. Models prevent stupidity more than they guarantee brilliance. They speed decisions and save energy, but they distort if you forget to test them. You can use filters for reality to screen noise, test relevance, check source, watch for consistency, measure impact. The idea is not to erase error, but to shrink it. When you notice a mismatch between a belief and the world, revise the map, not the world. With practice, your brain apps become steadier, your decisions more durable. The goal is clear thinking, not perfect thinking. First principles thinking. How Elon Musk breaks down complex problems. First principles thinking starts by breaking a problem into its most basic parts and then reassembling a solution from those truths. It's about stripping away what sounds right because everyone else does it, and asking what the problem is really made of. The idea fits a simple phrase you can trust in your brain like a tool you keep in the mental toolbox. Elon Musk talks about this approach by focusing on physics and core constraints rather than copying what has been done before. The aim is to map reality as it is, not as it should be according to tradition. In practice, Musk looks at big challenges by listing the fundamental facts that can't be easily argued away. Space exploration becomes a matter of materials, energy, and manufacturing, not just clever design. If a rocket costs a fortune to build, the question isn't how do we better copy the current rockets, but what must be true for a rocket to work, using the cheapest possible materials and the simplest parts. From those truths, he rebuilds from the ground up. This is how reusability shows up as a real option rather than a dream, and how a complex machine can be simplified into a set of repeatable, patentable steps. It's not magic, it's a stubborn refusal to accept cost or complexity as given. The same mindset threads through Tesla and other ventures. Battery costs, pack design, and the production line are seen as problems to be solved from the ground up rather than accepted as fixed barriers. By asking whether a component must exist in its current form, or if it can be replaced with something simpler, the team discovers leaner ways to do more with less. The method also teaches you to test ideas against the laws of physics and real constraints, not just against what competitors are doing. It is a way to keep the brain apps honest, to flip from imitation to invention, and to slow the drift into costly habits that don't actually move the needle. If you want to try this at home, start with a clear goal and a blank sheet. Write down the core truths that must stay true for the goal to work. Then list the parts or steps that can be altered without breaking those truths. Rebuild your plan from those fundamental pieces, looking for simpler or cheaper options you hadn't thought of before. For a daily decision, imagine you are answering, what must be true for this choice to deliver the desired outcome? Are there ways to achieve the same result with fewer moving parts? The mental shift is small but powerful. It turns decisions into a game of finding constraints and bending them, not bending the truth. This approach acts like a filter for reality. It helps you dodge stupid shortcuts that rely on old assumptions. It does not guarantee brilliance. It lowers the chances of obvious mistakes and makes smarter bets possible. Think of it as tuning the brain's toolbox so you can pull out a hammer when you need a hammer, or a saw when you need a cut. You'll still need judgment, experience, and taste, but the way you frame problems changes. You start to see where costs pile up, where time is wasted, and where a new path actually saves both money and effort. And that is the core promise of first principles thinking, a practical path to clearer decisions, powered by real constraints and simple truths. Inversion, Stoic wisdom avoiding stupidity instead of trying to be brilliant. Fact, inversion is a practical approach that shifts focus from chasing clever moves to avoiding stupid ones. You don't chase brilliance, you map the opposite path. Think of your brain as a few brain apps plus a small mental toolbox. Filters for reality are tiny gates that slow down bad bets and sloppy thinking. The goal is simple, cut out the dumb moves before they bite. To use inversion, start with the goal and then describe the opposite problem. List the ways the plan could fail or backfire, and add guardrails that catch those failures early. This isn't paralysis, it's a shield against clear errors. For a product launch, you might name failures like delayed delivery, weak adoption, unclear messaging, or cost overruns. Then you attach countermeasures, a tight milestone schedule, a small pilot to test demand, crisp audience insights, and a simple budget review before bigger bets. In daily life, inversion helps with a meal plan or a fitness goal by asking what would derail the plan and then removing or reducing those triggers, such as rigid meal rules that lead to a crash later or workouts that are too complex to sustain. The mental toolbox part comes alive through ready-made checks. Filters for reality push you to test assumptions, prove or disprove them, and stay honest about limits. One simple rule is to ask, what would prove this decision wrong? Another is to identify the single most fragile assumption and test it first. A quick premortem can be used before a big purchase or a major project. List the top 5 ways it could fail in the first weeks, then add one small countermeasure for each failure. When you study your work, inversion keeps you from grinding forward on a path that looks shiny but is built on weak footing. You end up with clearer priorities, not perfect predictions. Make it a habit to keep these moves in your brain apps and your mental toolbox. Jot down a brief inversion note before important decisions, then review what actually happened after the outcome arrives. A 2-minute nightly check is enough to catch one stubborn assumption that slipped through. Pair inversion with other tools, like first principles thinking or simple checklists, to keep your mind resilient. These models don't guarantee brilliance, they prevent stupidity. The quiet gain is steady, reliable decision-making that frees you to pursue worthwhile moves with fewer avoidable missteps. Circle of competence, the massive danger of stepping outside what you know. Your range of know-how is the area where you have real experience and feedback. In that zone, you can reason clearly because you can test ideas against results. When you drift outside, confidence often outruns accuracy. You start leaning on vibes or hype instead of data. The main helper is a simple rule. Keep your thinking inside a space where you can check it against reality. This keeps your mind honest and reduces stupid bets. Your circle of competence defines what you can judge well and what you should question more. If you built software for years, you understand teams, users, and workflows. But outside that line, you can misread signals or mistake bravado for knowledge. The danger grows when you confuse confident talk with real understanding. Think of your brain as a set of brain apps and a mental toolbox. In the zone, the filters for reality catch obvious errors. Outside, they slip. The habit of staying inside your known ground saves you from costly misinterpretations and weak conclusions. There are practical ways to manage this without shrinking your ambition. Start by mapping your competence. Make a simple list of domains where you have hands-on experience, training, or reliable feedback. Before speaking or deciding in a new area, run a quick reality check. Do I have direct data or a trusted source I can test this against? If not, treat the idea as a possible hypothesis rather than a conclusion. Use small bets to explore only after you've set a clear cap on what you could lose and a plan to pull the plug. Bring in a red team voice, someone who will challenge your view from within the discipline or from a different angle. Use reality filters. Ask whether the data comes from representative samples, look for counterexamples, and beware overgeneralizing from a single case. A simple decision tree or if-then plan can help you spell out what you will do if the results don't match the expectation. Ultimately, stepping outside your known ground isn't a moral failing. It's a miscalibration of where your thinking is most reliable. Models protect you from obvious mistakes, not guarantee brilliance. Treat your competence as a living boundary that you test and refine with caution. The circle of competence, when respected, acts like a steady compass in a noisy world. Keep your brain apps clean, your mental toolbox ready, and your reality filters sharp, and you'll make better bets, even in unfamiliar territory. Occam's razor: why the simplest explanation is usually the right one. Simple explanations are often enough to make sense of things. The idea behind Occam's razor is that, when two explanations fit the facts, the simpler one is usually the best starting point. Your brain runs on quick software, the brain apps in your head, and it likes the easy path. Keeping to the simple model keeps the mental toolbox tidy and protects you from noise. These models don't guarantee brilliance. They prevent stupid mistakes by steering you away from needless complexity. In everyday problems, the simplest answer often comes first. If your phone won't charge, the easiest check is the cable or outlet, not a grand hardware failure. If a room feels cold, a draft is a quicker culprit than a hidden heating problem everywhere at once. If you see a strange email asking for money, the plain explanation is phishing, not a secret plot from a distant group. These quick judgments are not insults to your intelligence. They're practical filters for reality that save time and energy. To use Occam's razor well, start with the simplest hypothesis and treat it as a working assumption. Put it in one clear sentence in your head, then design 2 or 3 quick tests to confirm or poke holes in it. If the tests pass, you keep the simple explanation. If they fail, you add a layer of complexity only as needed. This approach fits neatly into the mental toolbox, alongside other tools you use for checking reality. It also works alongside Bayesian thinking. In plain terms, give the simple idea more weight until the data says otherwise, then adjust. But there are limits. The plain explanation can miss rare but real causes, so don't ignore important surprises just because they feel unlikely. Simple models are great for avoiding foolish overthinking, yet they must be updated when new evidence shows the world doesn't fit the first guess. The trick is to use simplicity as a starting point, not a prison. The goal is better decisions, not formality. Keep a habit of testing the simple idea and be ready to raise complexity only when the facts demand it. A practical way to practice this is to pause before you lock in an answer. Note the simplest explanation in one sentence. Then list 2 quick checks you can do in the next few minutes. If those checks line up, you've earned the benefit of the doubt for that explanation. If not, adjust. With time, this habit becomes a natural habit of mind, a constant reminder that the brain's job is to filter reality, not to conjure miracles from thin air. Second-order thinking, seeing the consequences of the consequences. Second-order thinking asks you to look beyond the first effect of a choice and trace the chain of reactions that follow. It lives in the brain as a tool, part of the brain apps and the mental toolbox that many people forget to open. This kind of thinking doesn't promise brilliance. It helps you avoid big stupid mistakes by showing you what comes after the obvious. The idea is simple. Every action has a ripple, and some ripples shape more ripples than the first one. You don't need to chase every ripple, but you should know which ones matter. Consider a small, practical example from daily life. If you skip a workout to save time, the first effect is more free time for the moment. The second order is slower progress toward fitness, lower energy later in the day, and a habit fragility that makes it easier to skip future sessions. If you quit caffeine, the first effect might be fewer jitters and steadier sleep, but the second order could be withdrawal headaches or a brief dip in alertness that shifts your mood and focus. These chains aren't guarantees, but they're useful maps for predicting what could come next. In work or money, second-order thinking matters a lot. Raising prices might lift revenue in the short term, yet the second order could be fewer customers, pushback from loyal users, or a shift toward competitors. Releasing a new feature aimed at speed can save time for users, but it can also increase maintenance costs, create new bugs, or raise expectations that you then must meet. Automating a routine task saves labor now, yet it can erode skills in the team or reduce personal ownership, which might harm long-term resilience. Each move comes with a set of loose ends that often path back into the original decision in surprising ways. To practice, build a habit of mapping first-order effects and second-order effects side by side. Start with a simple decision, then write 2 columns. What happens now, and what happens next as a result. Use a back-and-forth narrative the way you would tune a tool in the mental toolbox. Do a quick pre-mortem. Imagine the decision a month later and list what could have gone wrong because of hidden consequences. Use if-then thinking to trap potential chains. If we do X, then Y might follow, which could change Z. This keeps you from assuming a single cause leads to a single outcome, which is rarely true in real life. Think of models as filters for reality, not crystal balls. They reduce stupid mistakes by forcing you to consider what comes after the obvious result. They do not guarantee brilliance, and they never replace judgment. They are scaffolds that help you see drawbacks and trade-offs before you act. Practice with small choices first, then expand to bigger bets. Over time, you'll get quicker at spotting second-order effects and more honest about what you don't know. The goal is steadier decisions, not perfect foresight, and that practical aim fits nicely with a pragmatic, no-nonsense approach to thinking. Hanlon's razor: stop confusing malice with incompetence. People often misread others' actions as if a plan is aimed at them. A simple rule helps most days. Don't assume malice when incompetence or miscommunication can explain it. In plain terms, the brain wants drama or certainty, but reality is often messy. This idea is Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice what can be explained by mistake or overload. Think of your mind as a set of brain apps and a flexible mental toolbox. One app is designed to pause and reframe before you act. Filters for reality help you screen harsh interpretations before they become actions. Use it as a practice, not a weapon you pull out to score points. Start with facts. Collect what actually happened. Then ask what would have to be true for the other person to intend well, or at least not to harm you. Write down 1 or 2 non-malicious explanations. Test those explanations by checking the data. What was said, when it happened, what pressures might be in play. If the weight tips toward error or overload, adjust your view and plan your next move using the mental toolbox. This is not a shield to ignore harm. It's a lens to tame knee-jerk blame. Think of concrete scenes to see the difference. A teammate misses a deadline and you feel they are lazy. It could be they carry a bigger load, they forgot, or they misunderstood the priority. A customer emails a harsh note and you assume bad intent. It could be stress, a deadline, or unclear instructions. A friend backs away after a quarrel and you assume they dislike you. It could be fear, a recent disappointment, or simply needing space. In each case, the question becomes, what else could be true that doesn't require malice? The mental toolbox guides you to check timing, context, and signals, not to accept the first uncomfortable explanation. This approach is a brain hack, not a moral pass. If patterns of harm appear, a different tool comes into play. Hanlon's razor works best when you keep it in balance with boundaries, evidence, and care for yourself and others. It helps you stay curious rather than corrosive, and it keeps your decisions practical. By treating explanations as hypotheses to test, you reduce needless conflicts and you protect your focus. That's how models guard against stupidity. They slow you down enough to choose a better path, not a flawless path. Building a latticework of models for a clearer mind. A latticework of mental models is a set of simple rules you can test against reality. Your brain runs on tiny tools, sometimes called brain apps, tucked into the mental toolbox. These models are not magic. They don't guarantee brilliance, but they reduce silly mistakes. Inversion means asking how this could fail, then avoiding it. If you plan a project, map out the worst outcomes and trace the steps that keep them from happening. First principles thinking asks you to strip a problem to basics and rebuild from there. Before changing a process, list the essential steps needed to reach the goal. Occam's razor says that when explanations fit, you should prefer the simpler one. In practice, that helps you avoid chasing unnecessary variables. Bayesian reasoning invites you to update your beliefs when new data arrives. If a new test or signal shows a change, you revise your plan to fit the evidence. Systems thinking asks you to see how parts fit together and how a change in one place moves others. A delay in a supplier can ripple through a project, affecting timing and morale. Margin of safety is about adding a buffer to your plans. Your map should leave room for error and surprise. Opportunity cost means every choice blocks another path. Ask what you give up and compare what you could be doing instead. Availability and base rate remind you that what's easy to recall isn't always likely in real life. Check actual numbers and base rates to balance the picture. Incentives push people to act in certain ways, and that shapes outcomes. Look at what motivates others and you'll spot the pull on decisions. Falsification asks you to try to prove your idea wrong. Seek counterexamples and stress test your plan to see if it still holds. To build this lattice, think of it as a set of tools you carry in the mental toolbox. Start with a small, practical kit of models you actually use. Keep a simple checklist for everyday decisions and jot what model you used. Review your choices and note what changed as new information came in. Practice with small decisions first, then bring the same approach to bigger problems. The point is to slow down the obvious mistakes, not to chase perfection. Filters for reality help you spot bias and see more clearly, like sunglasses that block glare and reveal true color. The goal is a clearer mind that can steer through noise without getting derailed. 10 practical mental models, simple as brain apps, sit in your mental toolbox like filters for reality. They won't make you brilliant every time, but they stop you from being stupid as often as possible. The core idea: use the tools to spot the missing steps, not to worship a single rule. Inversion helps you ask what could go wrong. Second-order thinking makes you see ripple effects. Probabilistic thinking helps you judge chances. A margin of safety nudges you toward cautious bets. Trade-offs remind you what you sacrifice. Red teaming yourself and simple checklists keep biases in check. Testing ideas on small trials gives you real feedback. And thinking in terms of systems and patterns helps you see the bigger picture. If you're here, you want better decisions in real life. These models are there to serve that need, like filters for reality that keep your view honest when the noise is loud. If you found this helpful, like it, subscribe, and share with someone who could use a mental tune-up. I'd love to hear which decision you're facing and which model you want to try first. Comment below and we'll talk it through. In the next videos, we'll show you how to build your own mental toolbox, how to pick the right model for a problem, and how to run quick, real-life experiments you can try this week. See you in the next one.